This is the intro video for Algebra 1 for functions. And in this video, we're going to be just looking at a little bit of terminology, and we'll do one example regarding functions. So first, let's talk about some terminology. The first word I want to discuss with you is relation. A relation is simply a set of inputs and outputs. And inputs and outputs usually go along with x's and y's. Those are really just a set of x's and y's. So an example of a relation would be 3, 2, 4, 7, 6, 12, -2, 5, something like that. So that's just an example of a relation. So a function is a specific relation in which every input, which is x, has exactly one output. Of course, the outputs go with y's. And we will look at what a function is in a couple of different ways in this unit. Okay, the domain is the set of inputs. Of course, inputs go with x. The range is the set of outputs, and that, of course, goes with y. All right, so now we're going to look at an example down below, just one here. So if you would look here at number 1, it gives us a relation. It says for the relation, and it lists out all the points there. And it says list the domain and range. So I'm going to say the domain is -2, 3, -1. There's another 3 right there. I'm not going to list it twice. And 2. Now where I'm getting those, of course, is I'm just looking for the x's, because I just mentioned domain is a list of all the inputs, also known as a list of all the x's. Then the range goes with the y's. So your range is going to be this and this, so on and so forth. So your range will be 7, 6. 4 is listed twice. You only have to list it once if something happens to be listed twice, and then a 7. Okay, so we've listed out the domain and the range. The last thing we need to do here is answer part B, is the relation a function, and explain your reasoning. So remember, a function is any relation in which every input has exactly one output. So we're going to examine the inputs and the outputs here. And while we listed the domain and range, we kind of noticed this. You remember how the 3, excuse me, the 3 was listed twice, there and there. So remember, a function is a relation in which every input has exactly one output. And if you look carefully at these 2 points right here, notice how the input 3 has an output of 6 and also an output of 4, meaning that 3 has 2 different outputs. And again, connecting with the idea that a function has exactly, every input has exactly one output, you can see that we have a little issue here, because the 3 has 2 outputs, 2 different outputs. So is the relation a function? No. And explain your reasoning, we can say because the input 3 has 2 outputs, 2 different outputs. It would be lovely if I could spell output. There we go. Has 2 outputs, and the outputs are 6 and 4. I'll write that a little bit different. There we go. So the answer is no, and there's the reason. Okay, so when you get to class, we'll look at some more examples like this. We'll look at some graphs as well. I'll see you in class.